And welcome back to another Rocks CTM test world. It's been a while, but I have something fun and exciting for you guys. It's something that I've been kind of thinking about how I want to set it up and how I want to solve the problem, some of the problems that I had with the system. And with the introduction of 1.9, it definitely made things a lot easier for me and made the system fairly quick, fairly reliable, and did pretty much everything I needed to do. So, the gist of this system is it introduces a random loot style system, similar to something like a Diablo 2 style random loot system, or something that you would see in an RPG, for example. So the gist of it is we have these slime balls with a random loot lore text. And it doesn't have to be slime balls. It could be any item as long as it has the random loot lore text. And once this item gets dropped by an enemy or a mob, it turns into a random item. As you can see, we've got a whole slew of random items from just throwing out those. So these right here are our random item, our random items. The system is very flexible in that we can expand this quite easily. We can make any number of random items, and it doesn't really take up a lot of space. I mean, it only takes up the 1x3 space, or 1x1x3 space, for each command block. Which means we could just stack a whole bunch of these next to each other, and it would give us even more random items that could be selected. This also means, because of the way the system is set up, that we could set up subcategories of items. So we could have tier 1 items that get randomly dropped by enemies. We could have tier 2 items that get randomly dropped, and then tier 3, and so on and so forth. That way we can kind of ramp up or adjust the random loot chance of the items, or the random item variety that mobs will have as the map goes on. So early on in the map, they can have tier 1 loot. Mid map, they get tier 2. End map, they get tier 3. And it's very flexible in how the system works in general. And it's a lot better than the old approach that was required of doing something like this. So the way that the old approach was required, for those of you who aren't familiar, is that spawners have what's called spawn potentials, which means it has a percent chance of spawning one mob or another, or one mob or another kind of thing, depending on how many spawn potentials there were. And so the old way of setting up random loot for mobs was that a spawner would be required to have multiple spawn potentials, and each of those spawn potentials had the mob with different loot kind of thing. So it was a lot more difficult to set up a random loot for a given type of mob. Now, all that's required is that a mob has a particular named lore item, that it has some variety of chance of dropping, and the random loot is all done for you. It's not required that you suck up all the inventory space for an enemy. You can just have one slot that's dedicated to the random item, and all is good. So the system itself requires 4 command blocks per tier of it, you guess you could say, plus how many command blocks you want for the variety of random loot. So we'll go through a quick description of all of these commands, and these commands I will give copies of, or a copy of the text that I have for each of these commands in the description. So if you're interested in attempting this yourself, you can get a copy of the description. You can look in the description to get a copy of what is done in this. So the first thing we do is we go ahead and we try to kill any item that exists in the world that has a score value of 1 for random, the score value random loot. So these items right here, when we drop them, they get a score value of random 1. So that means that we try to kill any items that already exist that have a score value of 1, and then we go ahead and do what we need to, giving any item, we attempt to give an item a score value of 1 if it has a lore text random loot. So this means that we can give an item that we want, say this slime ball, a lore text or a score value of random loot 1, and it will be able to go through the system, and then the next tick be able to kill itself. So it will only go through it once, and we don't have to worry about anything else with it. After that, we go ahead and we set any armor stand, or we execute at a random armor stand that has the tag random loot, and then we set the block underneath it to have an auto value of 1. Auto value is the needs redstone to always active. Always active is an auto value of 1. And so what we do is we execute at a random armor stand that has a tag random loot. We've preceded all of these armor stands to have the tag loot. And to set a tag on an armor stand, for these armor stands, we simply did a scoreboard, players, and its tag. Then we went ahead and did at E type armor stand in a radius of 5, and we went ahead and added our random loot tag to them. So that means all of these armor stands have a tag of random loot. It means we can more or less filter off of that random loot tag. So we went ahead and we grabbed a armor stand, a random armor stand with the tag random loot, and then we turned on one of the command blocks under them. After that, we went ahead and disabled. We executed all armor stands. We executed all armor stands that have the random loot tag, and we disable the always active on them. So that means we're only gonna have to worry about one of these getting activated, and then we'll disable them all just in case. So that this system right here is on a perpetual loop, and these little command blocks, essentially all they do is they try to execute at an item that has a random loot score value of 1. So as we saw before, if we threw a one of our slime balls on the ground, it gets a score value of 1. It then goes ahead, once we activate one of these command blocks, they try to execute at a item with the score value of the random loot value of 1, and then they try to summon an item. So this one summons a sword, this one summons a golden apple, rotten flesh, stone, and a leather chest plate. So as you see here, it summons random items. So if we throw that into practice, let's set ourselves to nighttime. As you can see, we have some mobs here. For demonstration purposes, these mobs have a 100% chance to drop the slime ball. As you can see, this one dropped an iron sword. Kill this one. He dropped a leather chest plate. Theoretically, it would be just as easy as adding another command block and throwing a armor stand on top and then setting its tag value to random loot, and it would work just fine. Okay, this one dropped a leather chest plate. We got this one dropping stone. So as you can see, it's a very flexible system. It works very well, very fast, and it's very compact. So the gist of it is really these 4 command blocks plus any amount of random loot that you want to potentially spawn off of the labeled item. So we could expand this as much as we want. We can shrink it as much as we want, and we could have special tiers of items. So we could change the tags on these command blocks to be these ones could be tier 1 command block tagged, or tier 1 tagged. These we could have some more over here that are tier 2 tagged, and then tier 3 tagged. And then the gist of it is that we just have to have these 4 command blocks per tag. And then the only thing we'd be checking on is in here, in our loop here, we would just be, instead of checking for a random loot tag, we'd be checking for tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and we would just be checking whatever item named, whatever lore named item we want. So beginning of the map, some mobs will be dropping some item that has a tier 1 lore name, and then tier 2 later on the map, and tier 3 at the end of the map. So the gist of it is it provides random loot drops similar to a Diablo 2 style loot drop system, or more in line with an RPG system. But that is my creation for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see some interesting ideas that you guys come up with that. Thanks for joining, everyone, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!